Hello, welcome to my weekly look ahead video. Unusually this week from the House of Commons itself. I have to say a pretty dull and dismal and deserted House of Commons because most people follow Parliament by virtual Zoom. But I'm here because I'm moving an amendment in the really important environment bill, which has its report stages, and I'm trying to get the government to tighten up on some of the targets that it has to follow in this groundbreaking piece of legislation. Now, last week I broadcast from the Lancing Vaccination Centre and introduced the fantastic Major Ted, and thousands of people had seen the words of encouragement for everybody to go and get their vaccination. The work on vaccination carries on at a cracking pace across the whole of the constituency, and I want to pay tribute to all the NHS staff and the army of volunteers that are doing such a fantastic job to make it possible. There's been some good news this week. There's indications in some early studies from Bristol University that the gap between vaccinations, which we've extended in order to try and vaccinate many more people sooner rather than later, that antibodies against the virus may actually increase over that time. So that, I hope, will allow some of the people's fears, but we need to see more science on that. But some really encouraging news from Israel, which of course have stolen a march on everybody on vaccinations. They've vaccinated, I think, something like 2/3 of their population, certainly most of their vulnerable population, and they are seeing a more than 60% fall in hospital admissions for COVID within 3 weeks of people having had their vaccinations. So that's a very encouraging piece of news. Now, as regards Westminster, we had debates on Monday around council taxes with Labour opposition debates and on working time practices. We are doing the Environment Bill today, lots of amendments to strengthen that bill as well, although it's going to take some time before it becomes law, and there's been some criticism over that. We want to get on with it as soon as possible. Later this week we're doing the Covert Human Intelligence Sources bill, which is all about gathering intelligence for the security services, and there's been some controversy there about using younger people to give intelligence to security services, so there'll be quite a lot of debate on that one. Then later in the week we've got debates to mark Holocaust Memorial Day and the UN International Day of Education. I've got a series of virtual meetings as usual, Zoom meeting with Southern Rail to see how they're coping in COVID and their reduced passengers. Certainly the train I came up on this morning, there was hardly anybody on it. We've got Home Affairs Select Committee. We're starting our inquiry into the Police Complaints Authority, which has come under a lot of flack, quite rightly. Last week we had a really good session with the social media companies, and I certainly put the boot in with Twitter and Facebook, and that got a deal of coverage for the apparent double standards that Twitter have been exercising. I've had some catch-ups with local schools to see how they're faring, and again they're doing a really good job in difficult circumstances, those I've spoken to. I had a really good virtual round table, if you can call a virtual meeting a round table, with members of the Upper Shoreham Road Action Group, some members of the Shoreham Bicycle Group and local councillors about the Upper Shoreham Road temporary cycle lane, which has been taken out, but we want to have a discussion as to whether a much better solution that everybody could be found going forward in the future, and I'll report back on that separately. There's a lot of work still to be done there. Got meetings around the project, not difficult, not easy at the moment, running an environmental project for schools during the pandemic, but the environment and the concern for environmental protection doesn't stop because of a pandemic. I've got meetings with the NFU to see how they're coping with COVID and also with the challenges post-Brexit. And then on Friday, again, a big roundup of meetings to do with hospital and health service vaccination rollout. I'll do a separate catch-up video report on that over the weekend as usual. So lots going on, some glimmers of hope, but we've got a long way to go. Everybody needs to continue to be vigilant and stay safe, everybody.